Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I thought we would do a video talking about the evolution of War Thunder and how you can say stuff literally a month ago, 2 months ago, and even 6 months ago that can completely change in pretty much that time period too. Over the last few weeks and months, one of the discussions that many have been having is of course the A-18. The reason for this is because the F-14's been added, the F-16's been added, and also the F-15 has been added. So of course, the most logical one is the F-18, the Hornet. So now that's the new American vehicle that all American players are going to focus on, and then when that gets added, then we're going to talk about the Super Hornet, and then when that gets added, then we're going to talk about the F-22, and so on and so forth, right? That's how these things go. So when the F-16 was added, everybody was asking about the F-15. When stuff like the F-14 was added, people were asking about the F-16. This is just how it works in the American aviation tech tree. You just always ask for the next thing. So when it comes to the Hornet, that is the obvious next thing. And we talked about it maybe a month, maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months ago, about the fact that the vehicle would be incredibly good in the game and would definitely be overpowered. The reason for this is because it does everything that you would want on the battlefield. It doesn't have a negative, whereas if you have a look at stuff like the F-16s or even the F-15s, the F-14s, they have some kind of weakness that can be exploited depending on which one you're looking at. Then they decided to add the F-15E, and it doesn't really have a weakness, does it? It can basically just do everything well, and it's up to you to pick what the playstyle is going to be. Now, earlier in the year, BVVD did an interview which talked about one of the key issues that the team struggle with is balancing the game while also adding new content, which I feel like is a completely fair assessment, since over the last year and even the previous years, we've had a lot of stuff added that has been incredibly unbalanced, and it hasn't become balanced over time. If anything, it's just gotten worse because there hasn't been a redux in these things. And whenever I hear or whenever we go through the FA-18 things, people bring that up as if that is something that matters, and therefore what they need to do is they just need to keep adding stuff over and over because that's what they've done in the past. If you constantly see somebody doing something wrong, you don't just turn around and go, alright, well just keep doing that thing because it doesn't matter anymore, does it? Everything just goes a bit crazy and let's have a bit of fun with it. But with War Thunder, that seems to be the way, because balance is not something that most people care about. What they care about is shiny new toys and seeing them. So with that thought, that's what ends up, bringing into the game stuff like the F-117. That's what's going to eventually bring in all of the large Cold War bombers. And that's also the thought that's going to bring in stuff like the F-A-18. So for me, when I think about it, screw it. Just add it in. I'm at the point now, when it comes to War Thunder, that I am pretty bored of hearing the conversations about what should be added, people reading off Wikipedia, what things have, what things don't have, and they should just add them all. Just go crazy, right? Just add all of the vehicles, so then we can actually focus on the parts of the game that actually matter way more than specific individual vehicles in individual BR ratings. You're talking about stuff like maps, you're talking about stuff like game modes, but mainly stuff like objectives, stuff like that which actually affects the whole of the game instead of just an individual vehicle that is going to dominate a BR bracket for however long it's going to, which is basically what a lot of the high-tier aviation vehicles do. Another thing that I would love to talk about is stuff like modification costs, stuff like research costs, stuff like this, but unfortunately, once again, we're in a state where that just doesn't happen because of the fact that we have to focus on whatever the new big vehicle is. And of course, with the leaks coming in now, and the leaks being around, talking about how, ooh, look, there's the Eurofighters turning up, and ooh, maybe China's getting new stuff. The first port of call, as always, is not, hey, that's pretty cool, or, oh, that's pretty cool. It's, where is my American vehicle, you pieces of shit? Give me my vehicle. And that is the problem. That is something that I've never understood in War Thunder, but makes me very sad. And the idea that we cannot celebrate other things getting cool stuff without having to get what is even seen as an equivalent to those things when it isn't at all. And when it comes to War Thunder, you have so many nations that are heavily focused on in terms of it. So many nations that are sat here in the game, which get so much stuff over and over and over again. And what ends up happening is people focus on those nations because they play only those nations. And also, at the same time, because the grind gets longer, because more vehicles get added, then they get stuck more in those nations. Therefore, they get more annoyed at those nations. And then the two kind of narratives which turn up are, what can you add to my nation to make it better? And then the second narrative is, what nations do they want, should they add to the game in order to just expand how many vehicles there are? Even though the vast majority of people don't even play more than, let's say, 2 or 3 nations. Most people don't even play more than 1 or 2. It's crazy. But instead, we're stuck in these constant conversations about what next extra thing can they expand upon, even though it's just creating more negativity with standard people. It's so confusing to me. I don't think I'll ever be sat at a point and understand it. I don't think my brain will ever click in. Because for me, I like playing a bunch of different stuff. I don't like playing the same stuff over and over again. It sends me a bit nuts, right? And when I run into something and I spade it and then move on to the next thing, I'm looking for newer experiences. I can't even imagine playing a million of the same vehicle over and over again. And when I look at the A-18, I don't see anything new. I just see a vehicle which has all of the weapon systems of something like an F-15E. It's going to play exactly the same as it. There really isn't a lot which is going to turn around with it, but I know a lot of people are interested in that because it's an American vehicle and they've seen it in posters, they've seen it in advertising, and they want the game to be DCS. And we just sat here just in this constant circle, this merry-go-round of vehicles being added over and over and over again. And the hype itself can only go so far. I get why people get burnt out when it comes to the new stuff. I really do. Because now we have a concrete set of stages in terms of the game and in terms of how everything works. And the fact that the game changes so aggressively so quickly, think about like the active radar homing update that we had this year, or maybe all of the SPH platforms that have been added, or maybe even the fact that a lot of these vehicles have been fundamentally changed when it comes to their radars and RWRs over the last few updates, and it just makes everything so hard to follow. And even for me, right now, with all that's going on, I am struggling to constantly work out what's going on. It's nuts. It really is. So maybe the reason why people focus on just playing one vehicle is because for them, or getting one vehicle, it's something to put your beacon behind. It's something to go, yeah, that's what I want. That's what I enjoy out of the game. Give me that thing. Because you don't have to worry about the rest. Or it's just because they want a new shiny toy for their nation. Whatever the reason, of course right now, the FA-18 could easily come whenever it feels like. The only question, as always, is what tech trees do you put it in? And that type of conversation, I feel like, is going to be done to death as long as it doesn't come this update. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.